Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. We're back for another episode of this podcast. So it looks like, based on my predictions, it looks like there's probably going to be 2 more parts, probably today's, and then probably 1 more week. I'll probably push through next week. But we're going to go ahead and get into it. I will just remind you guys, I did start a TikTok. I actually posted. I did it tonight. So definitely check that out if you'd like to. It's at graphically.alex or at graphicallyalex. I think either way it'll take you there. But anyways, let's continue.
So many of us just absolute dread and fear the possibility of looking fat.
Yeah.
Like in any shape, because that is like being fat is in our society like the ultimate horrible, gross, terrible thing that no one wants to be. And we wear clothes sometimes that restrict us and that don't serve.
I think it's really a gradient for sure. Definitely a gradient. I think it really depends on how fat people will feel that way. Like there are some people, of course, that have like a more restrictive side of things where any little thing will upset them. But I think most people are probably not like that. But when you get to be like up to a certain size, it is kind of horrifying to a lot of people. I would say I don't think it's the worst thing to be perceived as, but it is not a good thing. I'll give her that. It's not good.
Us, and we're terrified of getting our photo taken at a certain angle. And like, what about this? Like, what if it was okay to have our gut like come out a little bit? Like, what if it was okay to have a pair of pants that don't suck everything in? Like, what if it was just comfortable? And like, like, what if we have guts?
Yeah.
Well, okay. She has the trying to talk. She has the opposite issue of me, I guess, because as I've lost weight, I'm just going to be kind of graphic again. That's my username. Somebody else asked me, they're like, what's your username based on? It's because I used to be really graphic in the way I would say things. Like I would just be like, boom, just drop it, you know? And I was very into that word back in the day when I made the username, and I just kept it forever. It was very much like being very aggressively myself. That's how I thought of it, and it just stuck forever. But anyways, I've had chub rub from having pants that are in shorts that are too loose. It can cause really, really terrible chub rub, like can even bleed a bit, like that level. So it's a struggle sometimes. Like I'm wearing these pants I got from the thrift store. I guess I could get up and show you, couldn't I? Look at me showing you from this little tiny window. Oh gosh, I've never been this interactive before. Okay, so I got these pants. They're like Adidas or whatever. I got these at the thrift store. They're a 1X. They're a little bit tight in a way, but they don't cause chub rub. And they're like, I think sometimes, like as you're losing weight, things are just not comfortable either way. It's like if I wear a 2X, it's too big. If I wear a 1X, it's a little bit too small. For me personally, due to functionality reasons and chub rub reasons, I have to choose the smaller one. And she might not get that, but again, that's that inherent assumption that it's always for some extra reason. I will say I do appreciate wearing a smaller size, or like a size that's more so my size, just because I also did put a lot of work into losing weight, and in my opinion, baggy clothes can kind of make you look bigger. Like this shirt is a 2X, which is fine. I'm just going to wear it. But because a 1X shirt is just still, like I could do it, but it's kind of sausagey, and I don't want to be sausagified. I just don't care. It's bra autumn. I do not care enough to be like that. But if I really was just like, I'm going for it, I'm going to wear a 1X, I could probably do it. And as the weight comes off or continues to come off, even though it's really challenging in the autumn, I'm really, it's already getting tough, you guys. It's starting to get tough because it got cold here. I was all like, it's so easy when it was warm, and then it got cooler, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, it's like getting into the high 30s tonight. You know, it was like in the low 50s when I was outside earlier, and I'm like, ooh, this is tough. Like, it's cold. And my hypo is like, whoosh. It's like, let's flare up, Alex, because it's cold. But anyways, so that's all going down. So I'm going to do my best. I want to continue to lose. I'll talk about that in a health update. But anyways, the point is, as the weight continues to come off, I will get into a 1X, period. You know, so I think she still comes from an assumption that size can only change in one direction. You can only gain weight. You can't lose it. But yeah, so I would just offer a little bit of a counterpoint to that.
Yeah. No,
What if?
I love that.
What if? Like, guts, like,
Yeah.
side note are, like, pretty hot.
Exactly.
But what if we just let it be? Like, what if we didn't fear fatness the way we do?
And that was another piece where I'm like on.
I don't know that you should fear it because it isn't something that's just inherently out of control. That is a message that is pushed in society, but like in American society especially, that your weight is just so crazily out of your control and there's nothing you can do about it. And all this other fat acceptance, hogwash, you know, toxic ritualistic logic, all of it is all up in the business of America. But the point is, it's not true. So you shouldn't fear it. I think there's a difference between being aware and being fearful. Like, I'm aware, I'm not fearful anymore because I know that it is within control and we can get to a healthy weight and I can maintain a healthy weight and I can do these things. I have confidence as I've already kept off weight for 2 years. You know, my highest was in the 380s. That was in the summer of 2022. I have not been that size in a long time. You know, actually, no, it was summer 2021. Summer 2022, I was 374. Bing! When I weighed in on my scale in 2022. So I'm not even close to that. You know, I'm 263. I'm not even close to that. So, and if you combine the 10 pounds of muscle I gained, I lost 120 pounds of fat. So it's like, and that's stayed off for quite a while. So I do think when you maintain a loss, it gives you confidence as well. And then you don't have to fear it. Because you don't. You just don't.
And kind of the sexuality side where I feel like it's so just like something that's taught, because we went to this rave when we were in Melbourne, and the girls that we bumped into there, I'm like, okay, they had a stomach that looked like mine or like bigger than mine too, and both of them just had their stomachs out and like their skirt was low, you know, like around their low hips instead of being up. And I was like, I never thought I could do that. Like, I've always worn high-waisted pants because that's the part of my body that I really dislike, and I always hide it. And just looking at that, I was like, it made me feel so good and free that night. I was like, I love it so much. And then last night, we went out, and our friend Louise did the same thing, like had really low pants on. And I was like, I just kept telling her, I was like, you look so sexy and hot right now, and I love it.
So I think that could be part of why... Gosh, I have a horrible tickle in my throat. 1 second. I think that could be part of why fat acceptance exists. It's to make a lot of, honestly, I have to say, it's to make a lot of women feel more comfortable because it's reducing competition or something to that effect. I feel like that was a very good little insight into fat acceptance, because I feel like it's not always about them being fat. It's they want to make everybody else fatter so that they can compete easier, like in the dating world or just wherever. Because if she's, in my opinion, she's viewing it as like, if I'm thinner and they do that, they probably don't look good in her mind. And she's thinking, well, they're able to do it and they don't look good. Well, that means that if I do it too, I'll look better in comparison. And I think that that could be a possible hidden motivation of fat acceptance that comes from a non-toxic ritualistic place, because I don't think everybody that pushes it has it. I do think she does, though, to be fair, but I'm just saying it could be why a lot of people in general, it's not even just women, to be honest, but I think I feel like a lot of men probably say it to please women. And then a lot of women probably say it for the kind of mean girl, competitive side, trying to reduce competition. It's very toxic, in my opinion. But I think that's an interesting thought, too. I'll need to explore that further. Let me know what you guys think, like, about any other possible hidden motivations of fat acceptance if I'm not thinking of them at the moment.
And then I went to the bathroom and I pulled my shit down and I had my fucking sides out. And I was like, that's great.
Her courage
I love it.
encouraged you.
Yeah. And I love that. And it's like just
I love that.
living
The
your body.
thing that looks the best
love
on
that.
people is
Yeah.
confidence.
Yes.
Regardless of size.
It's hot.
It's so hot. Like,
Yeah.
if you're super shredded and, like, super, like, oh, but
Yeah.
does this look, but does that look?
I can understand what she's saying there. I think that there is an element to that. I do think, though, there are, like, I don't know how else to say. I don't know. I'm feeling kind of brutal today, you guys. There are aesthetic beauty standards, though, that do exist. And again, they can be more mainstream or they can be more individual. Obviously, my point of view is like it should be more individual because you're not trying to be with everybody. You're trying to be with the person you want to be with. That's how I see it. So I don't get caught up on like what everyone thinks or whatever, but that's just my personal thing because I'm brat. That's like my brat moment or my brathood. I care about if the person I'm interested in finds me attractive. I don't care if everybody finds me attractive. So, I mean, I do have my own standards for myself, but I think that they're reasonable for the most part. And I don't have zero confidence. I don't have amazing confidence. I'd say I'm probably just somewhere in the middle of the road there, But I try. But I think, regardless, I think I typically do come across as self-assured, but I'm not always, I'm not. Like, for example, being on TikTok now, like, and starting out there, most of my insecurity honestly comes from like introversion stuff, though, to be honest. But starting on TikTok and having a completely new platform with zero context, it's tough. I want to just run back to YouTube, my home, with you guys, It's tough to do something like that. And I'm not confident at all, if that makes any sense. So I think I get what she's saying. I think in the romantic space, confidence is important for sure. I think that there can be something humanizing about a bit of insecurity or just like being human, at the end of the day. Does that make sense? But I think a lot of people, you have to be careful not to be too much in either direction, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Take it for what it is. But I think it's also a spectrum. So I think like if you're not confident, that doesn't mean that you're horrifically ugly. I don't think that's true. You get what I'm saying? These conversations about attraction are so annoying because it's also like up to the individual too, you know?
You're not gonna be attractive regardless of like what way you are. It just
Curves
does.
are beautiful. Your body is beautiful.
Yes, and confidence in them
Yeah.
is so hot.
Like, think of how, okay, if we allow ourselves to do the work,
I think if we're going to get to the brass tacks, I hope I use that expression right. I always film these really late. I probably shouldn't, but I do. I don't know why. But if we get right down to it, a secure attachment style is attractive. That's what we're going to say. And I know that they don't want to hear that necessarily, or like people don't want to go to like that level, but that's what's attractive. It doesn't, and like the closest you get to that, the better off you are. Maybe you could be a touch avoidant or a touch insecure, and be okay. But if you're like full on avoidant or you're full on insecure attachment and you're like really freaking out about everything, or you're totally ambivalent or totally distant with everything, you're not going to be attractive. So I'd say like that is a thing for sure. And people should work on getting there. I don't know. I feel like with me personally, I've had like a weird, complicated version of it. I don't know if that exists, but I've had like issues of insecure attachment, but also issues of avoidant at the same time. It's really weird. I'm a difficult cookie sometimes. Okay. I don't know why they're making me talk about all this. You guys need to stop. Okay.
all of us, especially people who are not in fat bodies, to like really work on accepting and loving.
Maybe it's the toxic ritualistic past I had. That could be why. Telling you, the psychological damage is real. It's tough. It's physical damage and psychological. It's very, very tough. So I feel for people. I feel for all of us that have it in our past and all of us that are currently struggling. I totally feel it.
Fatness, okay, and people who are fat, and we work through this, and we do this stuff, and we're past that part now. We love fat people. Imagine how hot fat people are when they are confident. Not because how radical is that?
Yeah.
Like, how radical is it with everything that you've learned about my experience of being a fat person that sometimes I have the courage to show up in like a crop top. Like, when I see a fat person in a crop top, I'm in love. I'm like,
Does she want to make me say it? Why is it radical? If something looks really good, it wouldn't be radical. It's because it doesn't. I'm sorry. To most people, it doesn't. That doesn't mean that you're a horrible person or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that it doesn't look good to a lot of people. And again, I'm not one to be all like, ooh, looks and ooh, this and ooh, that. I don't really do all that because ultimately it's about your health, period. But if we're going to talk about that, that is an aspect of it. That's why it's radical to do.
this person's radical. This person is a politician. This person is an activist. Like, this person is like radical. Like, they're deciding, like, I don't give a shit. Especially a queer person on top of it.
Yeah.
Like a person of color who's fat and just letting it all like hang loose. Like, that is so sexy. And if we allow ourselves to see how sexy that is, like, imagine, like, I just want to say,
if we allow ourselves to see how sexy that is, that's weird. What does that even mean?
kudos. Like, we need to like love and like we.
My whole thing is like, I personally think fatness is always kind of like, it can take you down a notch, but it doesn't necessarily make you ugly. I think a lot of people think, oh, my fatness, it makes me ugly. It doesn't necessarily make you ugly, but it does take it down a notch. That's all. So if you're still pretty, you're still going to be pretty. in my opinion. And I think with most people, that's the case too. But it also is something that's a gradient. The bigger you are, the more of an issue it is. The more of a dip it is in terms of like your looks and stuff. Because when you get to like super, super, super huge, then it can ruin. I think at that point it can start to ruin your looks, because then it's not even just about like, when you get to a super huge size, it becomes also about your health is just so deteriorated. You tend to look more busted. You tend to have, the dark circles of death. Like I had that really bad in 2021 under my eyes. It was terrible. I looked like a zombie. My skin was gray. Like when you get into that zone, then it does affect your looks, because it's just because you look dead, and death is not like attractive to people. But I had like a super fat girly pop glow up moment when I started getting my hypo under control. And so I experienced that side. I experienced being kind of ugly as a super fat person, and I was not treated well at all. And then when in 2022, I had like my glow up girly pop super fat moment, and I was treated drastically better because I looked healthier and I figured out how to dress, which that was a whole other issue. But again, I was so hypo, I couldn't process fashion. I know that sounds crazy, but it was so bad. So anyways, it's bad, but it's because I was so unwell. I just couldn't even tell I was wearing stuff that wasn't matching or anything, and it looked horrible. So I think when that started to get better and I could dress better and and I looked better, genuinely, like I had like a glow, and like the way that I look or whatever showed more because of that, then yeah, I had the experience of, being fetishized, I guess, for that size. So I've experienced that too, that all went away when I lost the weight. When I started losing, it all went away. So I think I've experienced that's like pretty much everything along the spectrum. It's a trip. It's really weird. I don't know. It's so weird. I feel like I'm becoming one of those people that's lived like 10 lives or something, which I kind of have in a lot of ways. But as far as like the fatness side, it's weird to have that going on. It's a lot. And I'm not even done. Like I'm going to go further. You guys are going to see. If you stick around, you're going to see. It's going to be a wild ride. I'm going to keep going.
We need to find these people attractive, because I don't.
And I am like such a hyper analytical biatch that I will document every single phase, every single thing, all this stuff, because I'm fascinated, and I'm glad that you guys relate. And I'm just like document. Gotta go, gotta do it. Like, so I'm just so interested to see what the future holds, because it's been pretty wild so far.
Find it fair that people don't find fat people attractive. I'm like, how can you not? It's just because you have to let go of this whole idea that fat's ugly.
Yeah.
And see that, like, not only are we hot, but we're also like radical when we are dressing like that. We are like taking a risk.
Okay. I don't know. That part of it is just not mathing for me. I've told you guys, though, it could be more of a male brain thing. Like, your attraction is pretty hardwired. I think there's a difference between not being into somebody and telling yourself you're not into somebody. I think we've all done that. But I think that if you're truly not into somebody, you can't just be like, I'm just going to think about it differently. It's like, no, that's not going to work. In my opinion, it's not going to work. But anyways,
Risk on life, like in society.
And I think
Yeah.
it really stems from our own self-hatred. Honest to God. It's like internalized fat phobia that you project outwards when you think a fat person isn't hot.
I don't believe in internalized fat phobia. I call it toxic ritualistic mindsets and behaviors. It has to do with the letter E followed by the letter D, which that is true. One of the symptoms of it is externalizing and obsessing over other people's body size as well. So that's a problem. That can be a huge problem. Huge. So, yeah. Like, I don't personally monitor everybody's body size and that kind of thing. I don't do that anymore, which is horrifying that I used to, but I did. So, and when you are constantly calling out other people, like, especially in your life, and you're just like, you're fat, or you're gaining weight, or this is happening, or this is happening, it's a symptom. There could be something going on. But I wouldn't call it internalized fat phobia because that's a stupid term. That's not useful at all. It doesn't help anybody. It's kind of like a conversation killer. It kills all thought. When you say internalized fat phobia, it kills all thought. When what it really is it could be a symptom of a deeper issue with eating. So you're not actually helping that person by just saying you have internalized fat phobia. I would say you have a little bit of a fixation on the size of other people's physical form, which is not necessarily healthy. Because remember, comparison is such a huge thing because it's psychological. It's not physical. It's a psychological problem. So it's all in that realm of like feeling and relationships and these kinds of things. That's where it exists. And anxieties and potentialities and scenarios. And like that's where the toxic ritualistic behavior and mindsets exist, is in that realm. It doesn't exist in the physical. And it's hard for people to understand, but you're not eating because you're hungry. You're eating because you're anxious. That's what it is. It's anxiety. Anxiety is not physical. You can be anxious about something that doesn't exist. You can have a nightmare, for example. You can catastrophize and things aren't even happening. So if you're ingesting food based on a situation that isn't even happening, that's not rooted in physical reality. Now, where it can get muddy with people is when you eat like crap for a long period of time and you become super morbidly obese or even morbidly obese, you could develop hypothyroidism from the excess estrogen from being obese and from a fatty liver primarily. That's typically the obesogenic hypothyroidism. It comes from fatty liver because your liver has to convert thyroid hormone. So it can't do that as well if it's fatty because it's not functioning as well. So basically, you can develop hypothyroidism. If that occurs, then you will feel physical hunger. And then they can like work together and create a kind of death spiral, which is what I was in. Because my toxic ritualistic behavior was very severe. So, and when I say severe, I mean like, you're not going to live till 30 levels of severe. Yeah, that's why I had to deal with it because otherwise I wouldn't be here, basically. I think a lot of times when people have it less severe, it can last a lot longer because you're not forced to address it. Like I had to be forced to. Like absolutely forced. Like I mean white knuckling, guttural, horrible, had to stop levels. Does that make sense? And that's why it's more so dead for me because it had to be. Otherwise I would be. So that's a totally like, it's kind of a different circumstance, but that's why I'm glad I can talk about it because I was in it so deep. I know it so well. So I've really appreciated that you guys that bring up that it has helped and that kind of stuff. It really helps because it makes me feel like a lot of that pain was not for nothing, if that makes any sense. And that really helps me a lot. But anyways, if I can use my obsessive self to dismantle this and help to break it down in others, that's the best outcome we could do. That's the best outcome I could do and that we could have as a, content creator and viewer. So I'm wishing everybody the best always. Okay. Anyways, let's continue.
Are beautiful.
A lot of people try to find confidence in their body, in their size, by practicing fat phobia without even knowing it. So a lot of like body positive people will accidentally, and I've noticed this a lot online, use
It's not fat phobia. It's toxic ritualistic mindsets. It's because they probably have a problem and it doesn't have anything to do with you. And I know that that's hard. It can be tough because you have it too. So then you're always going to go there. But this is how it's like, it's not that it's a contagion. Like, I think a lot of people have this impression that it's contagious. It's not contagious. It's reinforcing. People that have it reinforce it in each other. It's very toxic. And it happens, I think, across pretty much all of them. But, because I've definitely seen it on the opposite end too, where people encourage each other. So I'm not going to get into that because YouTube really doesn't like that. But the same thing exists on the side where you're eating too much. That also occurs where people reinforce it. So part of it, which again, this movement is so weird because not everybody that's a part of the movement has it, but it uses the same logic of the toxic ritualistic mindset. So they also reinforce without even realizing that that's what they're doing. It's super dark and awful and it has to stop. But to me, it's like one of the biggest things is to break out of that hive mind of the toxic ritualistic mindset, because there are likely people in your family that also have it. There are likely people in your friend group that may have it. People may even have different kinds. They might have like one where you're not eating it enough and they'll still externalize it onto your body. It's tough. So part of it is you have to it's kind of like you have to unsubscribe from it in your brain. And you can be aware like, oh, this person is really fixated on how I'm presenting because they probably have an issue too. And it's kind of sad because it means the person has trauma. So it's not something people have on purpose either. So, yeah. I don't know why I'm emotional tonight. I feel like crying for some reason. I do not want to cry. I'm not going to, but I feel like it when I'm talking about this. But it's, yeah, I think we have to acknowledge that. And so you can't let that crab in the bucket mentality keep you there. You have to kind of just unsubscribe, pretend it's Netflix and you're not signed up for it anymore. Does that make sense? You're not signed up for it anymore. You canceled the subscription. It's done. But other people still have Netflix. And they're talking about Netflix. And you're like, oh, I don't watch it anymore. That's kind of what it's like. Okay? So it's tough. But to me, that's a lot more radical in a positive way to break out of that. That's very sexy, as they would say. Oh gosh, the way they talk about things.
phobic rhetoric to like make themselves feel better, and you cannot liberate yourself by comparing to other bodies and by ever deciding that any body is bad. Or so what I mean by that is like I got in like so much trouble last year for having like a online like battle with a body positive
Yeah.
person who was saying to her followers, go outside and take the walk. You're not as fat as you think you are. And like I've heard so many of my friends gassy.
Sorry. I don't know why that just made me laugh. I think it was their reaction that made me laugh, not really the statement, but it was almost like they were waiting for something else. Did I just see that? Hold up.
Any body is bad. Or
Hold on,
so
I need to see
what I
this
mean by
again,
that
I'm
is like
sorry.
I got in like so much trouble last year for having like a online like battle with a body positive
Yeah.
person who was saying to her followers, go outside and take the walk. You're not as fat as you think you are. And like I've heard so
That was such a fake reaction. I didn't just see that. They're like, oh, yeah, that's offensive. Okay. To me, it's like, I think she was probably speaking to more of like a mid-size kind of zone, which I guess, I think it's good to be aware that people are bigger than you or whatever. I try to be aware of that, but I am aware of it because I've been huge. So I'm very aware of it, if that makes any sense. But a lot of people, they haven't, and they're just trying to work on their own issues. And it's like, give people space to breathe. Just, it might help you feel a little better if you stop trying to control everyone else. That's my advice.
many of my friends gas each other up and help them each other with confidence by saying like, you're not fat. Like you're not fat. Like don't think you're fat.
She really, really, really overly identifies with it. It's wild. That's crazy.
You don't look fat in that. Do I look fat in this? No, you
Like,
don't
it's a
look
bad
fat.
thing.
It doesn't help us.
Yeah.
And it just continues
It's
this
still
cycle.
perpetuating
It
the same thing.
perpetuates it,
Yeah.
and it doesn't heal us.
Okay, well, what's the alternative? You do look fat. You are fat. You're fatter than you think you are. You're so fat. Yeah, I really think, all the girlies, they're all going to be saying that to all their best friends, By next summer, you guys got this. Next summer, it's going to be everybody's saying that you're fat to each other. I mean, that's never going to catch on. It just isn't.
And I'm not just talking about like respect for fat people or like very fat people. Like even in yourself, like you're not going to heal your relationship with your body
Yeah.
by fearing ever looking or being fat.
Yeah.
Like I was so upset at that woman by
I think there's something to be said about like de-emotionalizing the scale. I've said that many times on this channel. Like if you get on the scale and you're experiencing swelling and you gain 2 or 3 pounds, or sometimes it can be a lot. Sometimes it can be like 5 or 6 pounds, especially if you're super morbidly obese. It can be a huge fluctuation. Do not take it personally. Do not get emotional about it. Understand that it's swelling. You will typically swell throughout weight loss, and then the water comes off again, and it just kind of happens over and over again. You get used to it with time. But a lot of people that first start, they see that first swelling and they quit immediately because they're like, hell no, And I had like massive swelling when I was morbidly obese. Like it was crazy. And it just never really went away. And I got to a point where I didn't even have fluctuation. And I just kind of kept being swollen. Because I feel like my body was like at capacity for how much water I could retain. I mean, it was crazy. But, you still lose over time. You just keep doing the healthy behaviors. You stay in the healthy caloric deficit. You stay with the balanced diet. You stay with, getting on nutrition and all these things. and the movement and the weightlifting and whatever, and you just kind of do all that, and you're going to lose weight, even if it takes a long time. It will come off. Even if you swell and it goes up, it will come down. Give it at least a month. It will probably go down in a month. And then when you get into the seasonality aspect, from a super morbidly obese perspective especially, you swell drastically in the autumn and the winter. But it comes off in the spring and the summer. So you have to kind of like look at the numbers on the scale with a certain objectivity and not take it personally, because it doesn't matter if you're losing inches but you're not losing weight on the scale, for example, or if your body composition is improving but you're not losing weight on the scale. Water is not the same as fat, for example. So it's important to understand nuance within the scale and within weighing yourself. It's the same thing, obviously, if you're having your period. You can swell, like you likely will swell during your cycle. That's not something to take personally on the scale. So you have to kind of be objective about the scale and de-emotionalize the experience as much as possible. As much as possible. It needs to become boring. It needs to become blasé. It needs to become something that is just whatever. It's just one step in a series of steps. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all it is. And then don't do it more than once a day. I think anything more than once a day is obsessive. I would, and I understand some people are very triggered by it and they have issues and stuff. I would kind of work through that, but you got to like work with that and find your pace. Like, I can't tell you what to do and all that, but I think full recovery would be like, it's not a big deal anymore, because you understand that there aren't these mythological beliefs of how fatness happens or of how big you are. Because again, in the case of that person who was saying just go for the walk, you're not as fat as you think you are, she might have body dysmorphia where she thinks she's really hugely fat and she's not. And you can look at numbers and you can see, okay, I'm not actually fat. I'm just tripping. For example, but you de-emotionalize it. You have to stop. You have to de-emotionalize pretty much every aspect of it, because it's not an emotional experience. All of the emotion behind losing weight, gaining weight, changing your clothes, all this stuff, all of that, measuring your inches, all that stuff should be really, really, really not that emotional, because it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme. And most of the emotion behind it is manufactured. And I do think, a healthy response to buying clothes is just having fun and just enjoying the looks or whatever. But you don't need to be like really fixated on the size or really fixated on this or fixated on that. Like, because it's not like life or death. And you can always, like, if you're starting to gain weight, you can always kind of measure your calories and see what's going on and just kind of fix it gently over time. It's not something that you're not going to become 400 pounds in 2 months. Like, it's just not going to happen. So that's another part of the delusional aspect of the toxic ritualistic mindset, the one where you're eating too much, and behaviors, the one where you're eating too much. You are delusional about how long it takes to gain and lose. And you're delusional about like how much it took to actually gain it. So I'm always very grounded in that. And I know that I'm not going to gain all the weight back because I'm never going to eat that way again. Because I'm not as hungry. It's just too much. It's like, I don't have to. I don't have the toxic ritualistic behavior, none of it. There's no connection between my anxiety and eating anymore. Now I just have anxiety. That's about it. And sometimes it can be a lot, honestly. But it has no connection, which means I am in remission. There's no connection. So I can be really scared or really anxious or really upset or really anything, and it doesn't involve any kind of behavior around food. And that's how you know you don't have it. Now, you might just have anxiety. You might have other issues. You might be depressed. I don't know. You might have other stuff going on, right? But you don't have that anymore because the behavior is required. And if it's not there, then you don't have it. Okay, let's continue.
Saying that by saying like you're not as fat as you think you are. First of all, that's like body dysmorphia central. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
that's
It's
helpful.
also so relative. Like
Yeah.
what?
What does
How
that
do you know
even
how
mean?
fat I think I am?
Yeah, I've.
Like, so should I not go for a walk because I know I'm fat? Like, what about me?
It's just not necessarily intended for you, which is also fine. It's fine. That's all.
Me.
Yeah.
You know, and like, what if you are? Like, you should go for a walk
What if
too.
you are as fat as you think you are? You should still walk and you should still wear the crop top.
Yeah,
You know?
like so many people will say, no, like you're not fat, don't worry, you look good, and they go like, okay,
But
thanks.
it's still perpetuating like you're not fat, therefore you look good.
Yeah.
Rather than like, yeah, you're fat and you look
Yeah,
fucking
and
amazing.
you just look good, period. You know,
Yeah.
like some people will say, like, do I look fat in this dress? And you're supposed to say no. But
Right.
sometimes you want to say like, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
And you look hella
Yeah.
good in it. Like your belly is showing, like, and it's hot. Like
Yeah.
I'm liking it. I like what I see. But like that would be the worst thing that you can say to certain people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, obviously. Also, too, it's kind of FETISHE.
Well, I think we've made it, it's like what society makes it okay for. So, for example, nowadays, if you say, damn, that booty looking thick, it's a compliment. But it's like,
Yeah, it depends. I think it depends. Because, like, saying, oh, like, your belly, da-da-da, like, yeah, I've had guys say that, but they have something going on. I'll put it to you that way. Okay? Especially when you're that big. And they want you to be. So, because like I said, once you lose, then it's over. It all goes away. So, just saying. Just keeping it real with you.
it's same thing. It's like having a fat ass, you know? Like, and but people are like, okay, this is okay now.
Yeah, there's certain parts of the body, like fat distribution
Yes.
Yeah.
is like praised in certain parts of the body and in certain people.
Yeah.
But if you have like a big belly, bad.
Get
you
rid
know?
of that shit right now. That's
Yeah.
what-
I think it's like allowing yourself to look at fat people online, following hot fat people, following like clearing your feed out of like, you know, the same people all the time. Like we always talk about visibility with like anti-racist work and like queer, you know, like all of these things, but we don't talk about with fatness. It's like
Yeah.
maybe follow a few more fat creators, like see them on your feed, like neutralize this, normalize
Yeah.
it.
Throughout this piece, we've been talking about the fact that fat phobia does infiltrate our.
I don't really care that much about like following fat people. To me, that's whatever. I'm just very blasé about it. There are some people I follow who are fat. There's some people I follow who aren't fat. I don't even really consider it that much. So I think it's weird to suggest to follow somebody who's fat because they're fat. That's very weird to me. In my opinion, from my perspective, that's very strange.
Our own psyche, and we project it onto other people. It's an experience that I definitely did, and I know that a lot of other people do. I'm wondering in what ways this can show up, and perhaps if you've personally experienced this as well.
I think that we probably literally all are fat phobic or have internalized fat phobia.
No, that's not true. They try so hard to like, I don't know. Well, this podcast in particular, like they're really trying to shoehorn fatness into kind of like a I don't know, I guess like a more like a further left context, I guess, which it's kind of like they're using all the same language and they're using all this stuff, and it's just like, but it doesn't apply because you can lose weight. So it doesn't make any sense because, again, does that mean I'm now transracial because I've lost weight? Like, that's the logic that it's giving. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's not similar. And it's connected to eating. This isn't the same. It's just not. I'm not political on this channel at all, but I'm just letting you know, like, this is not a political issue. It's not political because, I mean, to me, from my perspective as somebody who lived and died by toxic ritualistic behavior, I mean, essentially almost died, when something involves eating behavior and there's some mindset behind it, and it's so intense, and it's such a thing, and it's so much of a thing where even if your health isn't doing well and you feel like you have to be quiet about it, that's toxic ritualistic, babe. That's not political. And I think people confuse it because they think that they think because they feel passionate about it that it's political. It's not. It's a coping mechanism based in trauma. That's what it is. So you need to address it for what it is. It's not a political movement. It's not a political ideology. Me gaining weight and doing diets that were too much and fixating on my physical form was not a political ideology, but there was a whole ass narrative around it in my head. There's a whole story. There's a whole way of life. It can feel like it. When I got rid of it, I felt like I lost my religion, which is horrifying to say, but it felt that way. It was tough. But it's not actually political, you guys. That's why I don't go there, because it's not relevant. It just isn't. And, obviously people on the left and the right, they talk about this. So it's not really about that. I'm just saying, like, they are shoehorning toxic ritualistic behavior into a political ideology where it doesn't make any sense at all. It's not connected. Your weight is completely mutable. It's not anywhere similar to race or to sexuality or a lot of other things. It's not similar. So you can't talk about it in the same way because it doesn't make sense. There's no diet to become straight. If there was, then it would be a very different conversation, wouldn't it? It really would. It would change it. Now, I don't think being gay is inherently harmful or anything, whereas I do think being obese is harmful. It still goes back to a personal responsibility thing at the end of the day, because it's harmful to you. And that matters. You matter. I'll keep saying that. They always are like, why do you care? Why does anyone care? It's like, because you should. You should care. And some crazy people like me take this up as a cause because I'm crazy. I'm just kidding. No. No, because it's what I'm most passionate about, which it makes sense. Why? I think it's pretty clear. But at the end of the day, while I may, take up certain political issues in pursuit of this cause at some point in the future, that's whole other conversations. It is totally different. It would have to do with like regulations and in regard to like food additives and things like that. Like it's a whole other topic, whole other thing, totally different than like how most people think about politics. But I'm not even there at this point. Like I'm still in the doing this part of the work myself. And then, like I said, I am out of this mindset, so I can talk about it, But it's like, I plan on working in this for a very long time. This is a really huge issue to me. And so I feel like I feel like it's just really necessary. And so anyways, the point is, it's not your typical culture war, left-right paradigm. This isn't like this. And they're trying to make it that way. And it's not working because it's not similar. It's totally different. Being fat or being obese or hypothyroidism or toxic ritualistic behaviors, it doesn't matter who you vote for. It's all bad. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter who's in office. It's still bad. But I will say, like, I don't like that. For example, a lot of dyes that are illegal in other countries to put in food, they're legal here. And the companies that change their dye, like for Canada, for example, like if you think about Fruit Loops, I think I saw this example. They change their dyes for Canada, but they leave the toxic dyes in it for America. That's the kind of politics that I would be talking about in terms of this issue. It's not your typical, left-right BS in regard to this issue. It just isn't. And so I don't appreciate them inserting it into that. And again, there's so many on the right that do it too. I don't appreciate it at all. I don't appreciate it, period. Because it doesn't help. And all it does is it like alienates people from getting help. If to the point where a lot of people say at this time, which again, trends have shifted. There was a time when being health conscious was more left wing, even though it never was. Now there's a time where being more health conscious is more right wing, even though it never was. It's not a real thing. And I'm old enough to remember when it was the other way, you guys. I'm sure a lot of you are too. So it's frustrating, but anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end this one here. I guess we'll go a little longer on the last one. So next week will be the finale. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys again next week. Have a good day. Have a good rest of your day, night, etc. I will talk to you later. Peace.